Welcome to the Retired Athlete Mentality Podcast, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories of former collegiate athletes who have transitioned from the competitive world of college sports to the grueling but rewarding world of endurance racing. Each episode, we bring on athletes who have gone from courts, fields, and tracks to marathons, triathlons, and even ultras. School's back in session. Welcome to the show. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Retired Athlete Mentality Podcast. I'm your host, Jamal from Running State University, and on this episode, we have a very special guest. We have Erin Williams from the United States Military Academy. Erin played for the women's basketball team. She was a 4-year letter winner and a 3-year starter from 2007 to 2011. She finished her career with over 1,400 points and 1,000 rebounds, good for 6th and 3rd all-time at USMA. She also averaged a double-double in her final 2 years. She was a 2-time first-team academic All-American, 3-time Patriot League Scholar Athlete of the Year, 4-time All-Patriot League player. After graduating, she commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army and continued to stay fit with everything from a 5K to a marathon. Erin, let's talk about your retired athlete mentality. How have you been?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Jamal.
So let's get right into it. For those who don't know, which is probably almost everybody, Erin is my classmate, and we both graduated back in 2011 from West Point. So I have my Army gear on to represent for the team, and yep, there we go.
Got my koozie.
We are nice. We are both graduates of the United States Military Academy, and we both played sports while we're at West Point. And today we're going to talk about Erin's journey. But let's take it back to before you got to West Point. What was sports like playing growing up?
So I was one of 4 kids, and there were 3 of us kind of like right in a row in my family. And so my mom, who was home with us all day, enrolled us in pretty much every sport from the time we were eligible to do them. Like we played in a literal competitive kickball league when we were in like kindergarten. For her, it was like a chance to get out of the house and like have an hour where somebody else was kind of responsible for us for a little bit of the time. And my siblings and I were super close in age, so we were able to do a lot of sports at the same time, like the same t-ball teams. We were on swim team. We all played soccer. And then when I was in 4th grade was the first year that I played basketball in a local rec league. And it worked out pretty well. I was like a head taller than pretty much every other kid out there. And I had some really nice coaches. And then I continued playing through CYO basketball. I played basketball and soccer all through middle school. And then switched to my local public high school for high school, where I just ended up on this awesome high school team. Our high school coach, Patty Hefner, was a former Division I player. She had played at Rutgers, scored over 1,000 points before there was even a 3-point line out there.
Nice.
And she had famously won a state championship when she was a player. And then about 20 years before she coached us, when she was like fresh out of college as a coach. And she had stayed out of coaching for a couple of years. Her daughter was actually my classmate in high school, and she got back into coaching when Amy was in like middle school. Just as she kind of saw her like through the ranks. And anyway, Patty was an awesome coach. She had such a great like balance and perspective. She literally forced us all to play other sports because she was like, you're going to burn out if you take basketball too seriously. So I played volleyball and continued to do track all through high school. A lot of the girls played soccer or softball. Literally none of us were one sport athletes. And then my junior year of high school, we actually ended up winning a state championship in Pennsylvania, which I think was really like a gateway for me for getting some more Division I attention and eventually getting recruited to West Point.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the recruitment process to West Point? So if most people don't know, you can't be really like late recruited to West Point. It is a process.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, gosh, recruiting, I don't even know how to describe it now because obviously the whole landscape has changed with all of the NCAA's new rules and the NIL. But what I remember being in high school was coaches couldn't talk to you until like the end of your junior year. So we won our state championship when I was a junior in high school. So it was like kind of the perfect time to have a little bit of extra attention on us. And back then, like, every school just sent out, like, dozens of mailers and hoped that people paid attention because they didn't have social media, like, they had to
Yeah.
go to tournaments and, like, hope that people returned their forms and, like, got the right information for players and found out when they'd be playing in the summer, and so West Point was one of the schools that had sent, a mailer to my house. I was not interested in going there. I had a brother who had wanted to attend the Naval Academy, but I was not interested in the military. But my dad decided to call and make an appointment for us to go visit West Point. And I was super not thrilled, like threw a temper tantrum, like cried in my room the night before because I was like tired of visiting colleges. But I ended up going and I just really, really liked it. Like I'd done recruiting trips to a couple other places, like smaller Division I schools up and down the East Coast. And I think the thing that stood out to me was, like, I felt like when I went to West Point, everybody kind of had a lot of purpose and, like, knew what they wanted to do. Maybe not with, like, their whole life, but at least in the next 5 to 10 years, whereas, like,
Yeah.
a lot of the other schools I visited, people were like, "Well, I might do this, I might do that, maybe I'll go to grad school, maybe I'll do a 5th year." Like, there didn't seem to be as much, I guess, like, purpose and direction, and so that was something I think I really liked about the military academy compared to other schools that I had visited at the time.
Yeah. And so, you ended up making the decision to go to West Point. So the summer before you went to West Point, most of
Mhm.
your friends were probably still enjoying summer, but you went off to what's called cadet basic training around July timeframe. What was that transition like for you?
I mean, I'm not sure how yours was, but the first day, especially for me, was, like, kind of harrowing. Like, I just remember when, like, they gave us new our issued underwear and, like, our PT shorts and our white T-shirt, and we're just like,
Yeah.
"Okay, go change." And you're, like, looking around like, "Oh my god, there's a room of other people. What am I"
Yeah.
like, I'm just supposed to strip in front of them? And obviously by, like, the 2nd or 3rd day, you're totally over it because you
Yeah.
have 5 minutes to shower every morning and stuff, but that first day being like, "Oh gosh, I just have to, like, get naked in front of all of these people?" Like, never had to do that before. Um And then, let's see, I also remember, like, being in bed the first night, having to go to the bathroom, and I was laying in my bed, and I could see out the door, like, where the bathroom was, and I didn't know if I was allowed to, like, stand up and go use it because I thought I was gonna get in trouble, and I just remember
Yeah.
sitting there like, "I am somewhere where I don't even know if I'm allowed to, like, go use the bathroom. Like, this is insane." So, it was I think I was definitely one of those people who was kind of, like, meal by meal for the first couple days, like, just get through breakfast, just get through lunch, just get through dinner, and then, like, slowly, we all start figuring it out and you get your feet under you and you start enjoying it a little more. And it's not like it's fun per se, but you make it fun and you've got good people around you. Yeah. So, like, that was kind of a cool challenge. And you do get to push yourself to do something a little different, which was another thing that, like, I think appealed to me about West Point was it was gonna be a place where I'd go outside my comfort zone a lot, and I'd have to do things that I wouldn't have, like, sought out on my own. So, I did appreciate that by the end of the summer.
Yeah. And by the end of the summer, you got the opportunity to join your team, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And so how was that? So you'd been through the whole cadet basic training, which was a tough experience. And, like you said, that first day, I personally will never forget. But then you get the opportunity to meet your teammates, all the other women's basketball players. What was it like finally getting to meet them at West Point?
It was super awesome. I was lucky because growing up in Eastern Pennsylvania, I had managed to get to quite a few games after, like, during my senior year after I'd committed and been admitted to West Point. So I knew some of them, like, semi-casually just from seeing them after games and talking to them a little bit, and I think that was the year that, like, Facebook became a thing too, where, like, non-college students could make accounts, so I had, like, connected
Yeah.
with a bunch of them on Facebook and stuff like that. Uh, but I just admired them so much because they were doing the thing I wanted to do. And coming from a team, my high school team had 4 of us go on to play Division I basketball, and then a couple others who went on to play at, like, the D2 and D3 level, and some who even just continued to play, like, competitive club basketball. So we all had kind of, like, we were all like fairly talented and had like continued to pursue basketball. So I think I also went in with the mentality of like, I know it's not about like one person being the star or anything like that. It's about figuring out like where you fit best and being able to contribute that way. So like just going in and being excited to work hard every day and learn from these girls who had a couple seasons of Division I basketball under their belt. They had played in the NCAA tournament 2 years before I got there, so there was a lot to like look up to in them.
Yeah, that's super cool to get that experience on teammates when you're coming in as a freshman. And so, we've talked a little bit about how you finished, but how did your role change and develop over the years leading up to your senior year?
Yeah. So my freshman year, my freshman and sophomore year, I would say we had like two really strong classes of seniors.
Yeah.
Kara Enright, who was one of our all-time leading scorers, was a first C when I was a freshman, so a senior when I was a freshman. We also had Alex McGuire, who was a junior when I was a freshman. She was another like top 5, top 10 all-time scorer. We had a lot of like really solid role players as well, who were, again, maybe not like hitting the record books, but coming off the bench, playing 15, 20, 25 minutes a game, like always good for a couple points, a couple rebounds, good defense. So we had just like a lot of people who were really hard workers and like generally, I would say, satisfied with their roles on the team. Not that they weren't like trying to do more and be better, but they weren't like, not to say dramatic, but no one was like upset if they weren't the one
Yeah.
who was, not scoring 20 points a game or something like that. And that was like a super incredible example. Again, coming from a lot of very like high functioning, well balanced teams that I really appreciated. My junior year, though, we had a junior class, a rising senior class that year who they had kind of been caught between coaches in terms
Mhm.
of like a recruiting class. So there was a lot of attrition, just some people who didn't stay at the
Yeah.
academy, some people who chose not to stay with the team. And we ended up having no seniors by the time I was a junior.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I would say, like, that junior year was probably one of the most, like, personally challenging years that I played basketball because I was picked as the team captain that year,
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
man, peer leadership is, like, it's the hardest because these are also some
Yeah.
of your best friends. Like, as you know, as cadets at West Point, you go through all of the training together, like, you know each other so intimately.
Mhm.
So we also know each other's like pain points and we
Yeah.
are all like very determined and stubborn and like want to do things our way. And again, we're not like saving the world like as the Army women's basketball team, but
Yeah.
we didn't always have like the same vision and the same goals and weren't always on the same page. And that was hard to like work through like how we did that and how to steer that and how to like work with my teammates in a way that also made sure they felt like they were being leaders as well and like feeling fulfilled and feeling like they were getting what they wanted out of the experience.
Yeah, that's a tough scenario. That's our class had actually had a couple others that were junior captains on
Hmm.
the team, which is pretty incredible, but it's a hard feat to take on, especially when you are just getting into your best basketball and then you have to also consider, hey, I have to lead this team. This high
Hmm.
level Division I team that's competing at the highest level. Now I have to lead them.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a weird transition, and, like, at West
yeah.
Point, like, you really start in the leader development, you actually, like, really start leading when you're a junior, so, like,
Yeah.
that's really the first year where you're in charge of more than one person in the, like, cadet chain of command, so, it was just a lot of learning, like, a big year developmentally, a lot of highs and lows, it was probably one of my best years of basketball, but I wish I could take like all the things I knew and understood leadership wise by my senior year, and have been just better positioned that year to handle that side of it.
Yeah, and by the time you got to your senior year, what would you say you took away from not only basketball, but your experience while you're at West Point?
Some of the big ones are probably like owning up to mistakes, something that
Yeah.
still struggle with. I'm not the best at, but I do try to like coach my kids through quite a bit. We have many moments where, we talk about like, it's okay to mess up and you can say you're wrong and you can learn and grow from it. And then I find myself
Yeah.
like, oh man, I messed up. Like, how do I rectify? Like, my first instinct isn't to be like, hey, I'm wrong. Let me fix it. So I think
Right.
that's a big one for me. And then also just like the relationship building that has to go into like building a good team. You're obviously not
Yeah.
always afforded that opportunity to like invest in growing a relationship with people before you have to perform. But like when you are and when you do take the time to do that, it really does pay off to have them trust you, to have them know you like as a person and not just in your like duty role is, I think, a really important one as well.
Yeah, and so that's a pretty awesome takeaway because I think that applies to a lot of different other things, not only sports, but a lot of other things in life, whether it's your job or work.
Mhm.
But then you graduate and you become a second lieutenant in the army, and you go to your first duty station, and you're put in charge of other soldiers, and so what did fitness look like for you when you first got out of the army?
Well, I finished my senior year and I had the chance to go to sapper school right after graduation. So it was actually like a really nice transition for me, like out of basketball, took a week or two off, and then really started just jumping in, like training for the next thing. So I was able to do that before I went to my basic like engineer officer course. So that was a very cool experience. And again, it kind of gave me like a transition thing to look at in terms of like physical fitness and having like a goal and like a thing to chase athletically. Then, went through Bullock and I got to my first unit, which was at Fort Bragg. And for those who are familiar with the military, Fort Bragg is the home of the paratroopers. It's one of the places where like everyone's dismounted infantry, so you're expected to be able to run far, carry a heavy load and walk far. People are jumping out of airplanes. Like it's the sort of place where like you go if you want to have a lot of physical challenges because
Yeah.
like that's where you're just going to be doing them every day. So I really loved it. I really thrived, and I'd always been like a pretty decent endurance athlete. Like I was a center basketball player, but I could outrun all the other centers. Like I could play 40 minutes a game, and not to
Yeah.
say I didn't get tired, but like I could keep
Yeah.
going for 40 minutes a game more than a lot of other big girls could. So it was like actually a pretty good place for me because I could lean into my strength of like endurance stuff. Yeah, so it was kind of fun to jump into, and I would say like around that time I always wanted to seek out challenges, so that's why I did sapper school. Um I jumped right into a platoon leader position, and that became like the next challenge to chase. I deployed to Afghanistan in 2013. And when I came back, that was when I ran my one and only marathon, was in
Yeah.
2014,
Yeah.
the inaugural Fort Bragg All American Marathon. But it was like I needed
Yeah.
something like a goal to orient myself on because I was out of that platoon leader time. I was out of the company XO time. I was a battalion S4, which is for those who aren't familiar, like the logistics officer. And
Yeah.
it's unless you're a logistics officer, it's like not super fun. You're dealing
No,
with a
it's
lot
not.
of like, where is the equipment? Like, what is the
Yeah.
maintenance status? It's a lot of like updating trackers and like running down spare parts and things that you're like, man, I didn't want to do this. So it was kind of a good time in my life to pursue that challenge.
Yeah, no, I know the experience working that position, and it is not fun as a
No.
person who doesn't do that on a regular basis. But, you come back from Afghanistan and you treat yourself to a nice marathon. How did
Mhm.
that go for you?
It went about as well as most people's first marathon.
Yeah.
I trained with like a super generic, like probably a Hal Higdon like mileage plan, and I worked it in
Yeah.
with my Army PT. Obviously, back then I didn't have kids, so I could just kind of add in a run like after PT or run in the
Mhm.
evening or something if I needed to. And then on race day, like I said, it was the inaugural race, and they scheduled it for the first week of May that year.
Oh my
The
goodness.
problem is when you're training, like, all through winter and, like, you
Yeah.
peak at the end of March, and then, like, May 1st or 2nd is the race day, like, it's now, getting to be, like, 85, 90 degrees every single day here in North Carolina, and that's exactly what happened. I, like, kind of peaked out well, it was still a little bit cooler, on race day, it was gonna be, like, 85 or 90 degrees outside, I ran a half marathon PR in the first half of the race, like every
Nice.
good first time marathoner.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and then I just limped through the second half of that race. And it didn't
Yeah,
help that it was around the airfield here, where there was like no tree cover at all. So
none.
I just remember like run walking most of the second half. And I did finish under 4 hours. I think I was at like somewhere, I think maybe 3:52 or 3:56, like something
Yeah.
halfway decent, but I definitely hit the halfway point like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna BQ, like, this is a
Yeah.
breeze." And then, like,
Yeah.
mile 14, 15-ish, I was like, "Never mind, this is not."
Yeah, not again.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
probably didn't, now that I look back, I'm like, I probably didn't have the right fuel,
Yep.
probably didn't drink enough water, my shoes were probably garbage, I probably, like, I literally just did training for the mileage, and didn't do anything where I was, like, thinking about what pace I might be running, and, like, maybe we should practice that.
Yeah.
So, they say you live and you learn and you mature. And I just think sometimes of like, I haven't had a chance to run a marathon since then, but I'm like, man, I'm going to be so much better because I'm such a better
Yeah.
racer than the person that I
Yeah.
was when I was like 24, 25, and I could literally just wing it and like drink a beer after and be fine the next morning.
Yeah. No, I love hearing about the first time and then, where people are in the present day because, we learn so much and, you could be the person that does it once and, never does it again, but I think a lot of people will do it and then they're like, "Okay, how do I get better at what just happened?"
Yeah.
Not at least not in the first couple days after, but, like after you start thinking about it, especially for me, I did exactly what you just talked about where
Yeah.
I went out super fast. And I was like, "Oh man, I'm feeling great." And then by the end, it was just like, "This is
It's a
terrible. I'm
bloodbath.
inching
Yeah.
my way." Yeah. And so it's really cool to see how people use that experience and then turn it into, a better experience in many other races.
Yeah, and I think so many people like our story of I did my whole first marathon wrong is like the
Yeah.
most common, right?
Yeah.
Most people will say the first one was like the most horrible experience of my life. And I cannot believe I
Yeah.
put myself through that. But then again, you learn about pacing, you learn about fueling, you learn about like where you can actually sustain that effort for plus hours. And you're like, oh, this feels so much better the second time, just because you know what's coming and you can plan and
Yeah.
prepare for it.
Yeah, and so after you did that first one, was this something that you were trying to do regular, or did you find it hard to work that in with your army life?
So shortly after I ran that marathon, my husband and I moved from North Carolina. We got married. We moved from North Carolina to Missouri. We were only there for like 10 months for our captain's career course and then to finish out a master's program. And then we went right to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, to our next unit at the Hunters. And literally my first, like I went down to Fort Polk, Louisiana for a training center rotation the day after I reported. So, like, I just never got momentum. I was still working out a lot. I did some shorter races, but I wasn't like in longer distance mode. I felt like I was always kept myself in the shape where I could like jump into a half marathon and like
Yeah.
perform pretty well at any point. But obviously, marathon training is like a whole different ball game. And then shortly after that, we decided to start our family. So I went
Yeah.
through three back to back to back pregnancies with a little under a year between each. So I had a couple of years where we were having babies and like
Yeah.
either pregnant or just had a baby and then like transitioning back into pregnancy, learning how to parent with two kids, learning how to parent with three kids. And then, I ran between each, but I tried to pursue like shorter distance goals. Like I was really into the 5K because 5K training was just something that like time wise could work really well for our family.
Yeah.
And it didn't take me away for like hours on end. And Casey had his own training goals too. So like it was kind of a good balance where I wasn't like being too selfish with that time because we just didn't have a ton of time when the kids were that little. Then we got to West Point just in time for COVID to hit. So
Yeah.
then we had, three little kids and there was COVID and we were living at the top
Yeah.
of a mountain. And the kids were in and out of daycare like every single week because all the classrooms would shut down all the time for COVID exposure. So I feel like I had a couple years where like it just didn't make sense to do longer distance races. Like I don't even think I did a half marathon from the time I was pregnant with my second until yeah, it was like almost 4 years between half marathons just because
Yeah.
we where we were at the time, and like the amount of time I had to train just didn't make it easy for me to do any sort of races.
Yeah, I love that mentality, which is essentially like you just have to adapt.
Hmm.
I talk a lot about this, which is being adaptable, whether it's within a training or you're having kids and you just have to you have to switch. Like I
Hmm.
can't do marathons anymore. I can't do half marathons anymore until you adapted and went to the 5K, which is just as fun of a race as some of the others. And so you did that, which is awesome. But I know that at some point in your running career, you did one thing, which was I think you had mentioned your kids were asleep and uh, you had been tired of running on the treadmill. Can you talk about that
Oh,
that
yeah.
one? Yeah, can you share what you did there?
Yeah, when my husband was deployed in, yeah, 2023, 2024, I had a lot of, like, mornings and nights where the kids were asleep, and it was, like, my time to exercise, and we have a treadmill. We're very, very lucky we have a treadmill, but I was, like, over it. I didn't wanna run in the garage, like, in the stuffy garage in the dark anymore. So I just started running in front of the house, like 2 houses down, 2 houses back. Um,
Yeah,
and I slowly expanded it. I ended up having like I went, 2 houses in one direction, then basically just around the block where I was running by the
yeah.
house like every 2 minutes, like had a monitor outside. But I was doing like this tiny little like 1/3 mile loop around my house. And I, ran probably a couple hundred miles on that loop over
Wow.
the course of a year and a half. But I was
Wow.
outside. I am just one of those people who would much rather be outside than inside, like unless the weather's super, super bad.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so it worked for me.
Yeah. Again, adaptability, getting the things that you want in the situations that you have laid on the table, and that's really awesome.
Yeah. Yep, we all do our best, and now I actually have been enjoying, like we were saying, I've been working through an injury kind of like you have, and one thing I
Yeah.
actually really enjoyed this winter was, like, being indoors to exercise every
Yeah.
day. So I actually pulled my bike, like, I got a bike trainer off Amazon, mounted my bike on it, and every morning I would just pull it into the house from the garage so that I was
Yeah.
warm, and I just sit there, like, watching shows while I rode. Not quite as good as running, but it was also, like, way more comfortable, and I got to catch up on TV that I wouldn't otherwise have watched.
Yeah, definitely. And would you say, when you in times like when your husband is deployed or when you just can't get everything that you want done, what was your mentality? Did you have like a mantra that you were saying to yourself during those times, or what got you through those times?
Um, I think I'm always of the mindset that, like, something's better than nothing. I'd
Yeah.
say that kinda started when the kids were really little, and maybe it would between, like, naps and people who needed attention and food and stuff like that, it'd be like, maybe I get 20 minutes in the living room while someone's watching
Yeah.
TV, but, like, that's better than nothing. Um, I did decide to pursue a goal half marathon while he was deployed, and I set my half marathon PR, 1:34. I was super proud of
Nice.
myself while
Yeah.
he was deployed, but it was kind of one of those, like, I needed something that I could control. So
Yeah.
doing some hard training during that season was like good for me because it gave me something to look forward to and something that I knew I was like, I'm all these other things are outside of my control. I don't have my husband home. There's only so much I can control with the kids, but I know like I can like go out there and train like with so much effort every single day. So that was helpful.
Yeah, and were you developing your own training plans, or what did that look like?
No, I actually started working with a coach during that season.
Okay.
I coach with Lift Run Perform, which is a coaching business. A lady named Mary Johnson. It's a marathon on
Yeah.
Instagram. She was someone I had followed for a long time, and I had gone in 2018 and gotten my coaching certification and kind of coached on my own, but I was like horrible at the business side of it. Like
Yeah.
I was just not great at that piece. So when Mary was taking coaching applications a couple of years ago, I applied and she asked me to join them. And so when Casey, my husband, left for that deployment, I was like, I know I want like a goal to focus on, but I also like need to be able to push the easy button for the training, and I can't put my mental energy into like what I'm going to do. And also, like, I knew
Yeah.
I wouldn't push myself quite hard enough. Like, I had kind of been at the same place in the half marathon for a couple years and was ready for something that was going to be a little bit different and like push me through that plateau.
Yeah, and how did you end up picking the coach?
Uh, well, there were a couple who were available to take on new clients at that point, but
Hmm.
Mary at home, who I worked with and I've continued to work with, we're paused for a little bit right now because I'm dealing with this
Yeah.
injury, but I've continued working with her. She just had a ton of experience, and I was like, I have maybe like less depth in the my coaching because I didn't run in like high school and college, or
Hmm.
some of I think Mary has. She's like semi-pro trail runner. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
She's
she's
pretty.
very, very good. I don't know what her actual
Yeah.
status is, but she's very, very talented.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to work with someone who, like, I know has so much more experience and can bring so much
Mm.
more depth to my training. So I jumped at the chance to work with her, and she was great. She really did push me, but she also worked with my schedule because I came and I said, look, I can run, 4, maybe 5 days a week. Like, you're probably not going to put me above 30 miles per week, but I want to shave
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 minutes off my half marathon time. That's already like fairly decent. Like I was,
Hmm.
I was, a 1:37 marathoner or half marathoner.
Yeah.
So like I needed that like extra edge, and she was able to help me with that.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of having a coach is that you already have a busy work life, you have a busy family life, you have, some clients on the side.
Hmm.
So you just need someone to put that all together for you so that you don't have to worry about that. And so I think when people say, "Oh, coaches aren't that great," well, I think it just depends on, who the person is, and it's always what your life is like when it comes to coaching.
Yeah, and I know some people like coaching it's a luxury, right? It's expensive.
Yeah.
And I joked there've been a couple years here where like my little bit of coaching pays for the coaching I receive, which is
Yeah.
fine,
Yeah.
but for people who, maybe just need accountability, like I work with a lot of
Mm.
runners and have in the past who are either just starting out or just getting back into running and just want somebody to be like checking in on them regularly. Sometimes it's you have a specific goal race and you just want somebody for those 3, 4, 5 months leading up to the race who's going to push you out of that comfort zone, but you can maintain on your own. There's a lot of different reasons and a lot of different ways to use a coach. I know I've personally really benefited from it, and I've continued to use the coach because it it gives me such fun workouts, really, is like what it comes down to. I can plan the easy runs. Like that to me is like not that hard. But when I look at the
Yeah.
workouts and I'm like, whoo, this is really challenging. But that's the part that I
Yeah.
like really, really enjoy is when I finish a good, I love tempo runs. I would do tempo runs all day. That's my favorite pace, right?
Yeah.
And Mary made me do different types of runs that were faster than my tempo runs and felt harder than my tempo runs because I don't like running those paces. But I'd finish and I'd be like, man, I did that. Like that felt so good. I feel so accomplished. And like you just ride that endorphin high.
Yeah, and I think the lift, run, perform concept is one that I really like because you see a lot of people who will run but won't lift, and who will lift who won't run. And I think when you do run, it is a it is a huge plus when you add strength training to that. And I love that concept of, lift, run, perform, because in order to perform at a high level, not only do you have to run, but you have to lift to keep yourself healthy and strong and pushing faster and faster when you are racing.
Yeah, and I will say the lifting workouts that Mary Johnson puts together are killer. So, if you're a runner who's
Yeah.
been like looking to add strength in and just really need to like up level, like her programming is really challenging in like the best possible way. I've really enjoyed doing it over the years.
Yeah, and that's my trouble. My trouble is like I still want to lift like a football player and not lift
Mhm.
like a runner. So I'll get in the gym and I'll be like, all right, let's throw some heavy weight on there. Don't worry about my, like strengthening my calves or my Achilles or my hip
All these like
flexors.
the
I just
isometric stuff that like you
yeah,
really need, the balance stuff that
yeah,
you really need as a runner. Yeah, her programs have tons of that stuff. And I'm the same
yeah,
way. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do like 3 rep max deadlifts. Like
yeah,
we're gonna
yeah,
go do bench press until
yeah,
failure. I'm used to
exactly.
lifting a certain way as a college athlete. That looks a little
Yeah.
bit different when you're not like trying to perform for like a ball sport like we both played. Like this is a
Yeah.
different type of sport.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun though. That's something that I think is probably one of my weaknesses is lifting like a runner. And so maybe I'll try to find some stuff online to get me to do that a little bit better.
Yeah, like I said, Mary's program's great. So
Yeah.
definitely recommend.
Yeah. And so, we've talked a little bit about it, but you're a mom, a wife, an army officer, a coach, a runner. What would you say helps you balance all of those things on a day-to-day basis?
I think I really look forward to my workout time every morning. I wake up a little before the kids. My husband leaves for PT and I get in, 45 minutes to an hour of exercise while I wait for the kids to wake up. And that's like the one time during the day where it's like me and I'm alone and I can just focus on myself and like push myself. And then it's kind of like the rest of my day belongs to other people.
Yeah.
Then the kids wake up and my morning belongs to them and I go to work and my day belongs to my unit and my boss. And then I come home and I pick up the kids and my
Yeah.
day belongs to them. And then we got a dog this year. So, part of my day
Yeah.
belongs to the dog now too. Like carving out that time for myself where I can like feel like I accomplished something and like push my body early on just really sets me up for success during the day. And like even on the weekends, like, I'm not waking up at 5, but, I like to start my day with at least some sort of, like, movement to just, like, get my body set and ready to go, whether it's, like, formal exercise or just, like, going on a long walk with the dog.
Yeah, what kind of dog did you get? I think I've seen pictures.
He's the lab mix. We got him
Okay.
from a local shelter, so he looks like the black lab that I had growing up. We
Yeah.
went to start looking at dogs, and I was never a big dog person. The dog was, I would say, argued like more my sister's dog or like the
Yeah.
family's dog than my dog. But like I was immediately pulled to these like lab mix puppies that they had who had been born in the shelter. And he's super chill. He's
Yeah,
great. One
that's
day
good.
he'll run with me. Right now he is very, very cautious.
Yeah,
So he likes to be able to like stop and like look around at things while we're walking and like figure out what they are.
that's cool. Yeah, he
Hmm.
looks like an awesome puppy.
He is, yeah.
And so, as we wrap up, what advice would you give to anybody who's transitioning from the college experience, very structured lifestyle to, a very non-structured lifestyle where you kind of have to make up your own rules when it comes to, getting into fitness and endurance running or endurance sports. What advice would you give someone that's making that transition?
I think first is like you've got to find something that you're going to look forward to. And that could change over time. Like you might
Hmm.
finish your sport and just like never want to do that again. Like I felt like I closed out my basketball career like very nicely and I haven't had a ton of desire to continue playing basketball. Like I felt like I did what I needed to do. I put a bow on it and like I'll play every once in a while, but I know some people will finish and just be like, "No, thank you. Never touching that again.
Yeah.
I hated that." So just find something that you look forward to. It could be something totally different. My mom loves bar class. My sister loves running. My brother swam in college, and I don't think he loves swimming that much now because swimming is probably one of the least like I feel like it's one of the least rewarding sports out there where
Yeah.
you put in so much work for like a 2-minute race.
Yeah.
So, like, everybody finds something different that, like, makes them tick and makes them happy, and just, like, let yourself kind of iterate through until you find something you enjoy. But definitely, like, keep moving somehow. Like, whatever your
Hmm.
fitness is, I think it's really hard if you just, like, kinda let it drop off because these should be I'm preaching to the choir here, but these should be lifetime habits. Like, I wanna be that person who, like, you see a reel about because 'cause I'm 87 years old and I just, like, won the national championship in the 400 meters because I was one of 4
Yeah.
people left in the country who could actually run 400 meters.
Yeah.
So, like, I'd rather keep pursuing stuff, that lets me keep moving than, like, go too hard in one direction and, like, get burned out and fall off. Um yeah, I think that's the big one. Find something that motivates you and then give yourself some structure. I also think that like switching from a super structured lifestyle to something completely unstructured can also be very bad. And it's
Yeah.
really easy to fall into bad habits. So it's a lot better if you are like, I'm still going to make sure I exercise every morning or get to the gym 3 days a week, or, I'm at least planning out my lunches Monday through Thursday so that I'm not just eating fast food the entire week. Like a
Yeah.
couple of those little, like giving yourself a little bit of structure can really make a really big difference in like keeping lifelong healthy habits, which again is the ultimate goal is like you want to keep doing healthy things for your whole life so that you can enjoy what you're like the life you're living as much as possible.
Yeah, I love that. I always like to preach routine.
Hmm.
Even when I'm in a situation where I'm in an injury, but I try to keep the routine. So I'm waking up
Hmm.
and I might not be running, but I'm doing something at that time because I know by the time I want to get back to it, that routine is going to still be there. So I love that because routine is important because your mind is used to what you do on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I coach a lot of people who are new to running or like returning to running after a long break. And
Yeah.
one of the first things I have them do is like before we even run, I'm like, you need to walk 3 days a week for 30
Yeah.
minutes. Like we
Hmm.
do that for 3 or 4 weeks before we start actually running because it's like you're developing that good routine and you're preparing your body to start running during that time. Like you said,
Yeah.
having the routine keeps you on track and prepares you for whatever that next step is going to be.
Yeah, and we talked about it a little, but you're going through an injury, but once you get back from that injury, is there anything on the calendar that you're eyeing, hopefully if the injury subsides?
Um, I feel like I personally thrive in like that 5K to half marathon distance. One day I will do another marathon. I thought I was going to this year and this knee thing
Yeah.
flared up. But I really do love kind of the 5K, the 10K. I love a 10 miler and I love a half marathon. So, I guess depending on like how quickly I heal, I'd love to do the Army 10 miler again.
Yeah.
I'd love to find like a good half marathon around here or find one that's actually flat. I seem to only live places that are like really, really hilly. So
Yeah.
people are like, oh, I ran a hilly half marathon. There were like 300 feet elevation gain. I'm like, you found a half marathon with only 300 feet? Like,
Yeah,
man, I'm
exactly.
jealous. So I did one in Kansas that was like a flat, fast half marathon. And by the end, I was like,
Yeah.
that was 600 feet of gain. Like, what the heck,
Yeah.
Kansas? Like,
Yeah.
that's not flat. So I'd love to like keep chipping away at that. I think I can get myself like closer to 130. I hit 134 on like 25 to 30 miles a week. So I think I could get a little closer to 130. I've run a sub 19 5K in a time trial. So I'd
Nice.
also love to do that in like an actual race. And when I say a time trial, it was during COVID in the parking lot of the commissary at West Point, which is the
Yeah.
grocery store at West Point, one of the only like flat places on base and up near where I was living at the time where didn't have to like drive to the other side of campus to go on a track. So I'm like, I know I'm there, I'm scratching the surface. I just haven't done it in an official race. So those would be kind of like the two ends that I would probably look at for like what's next.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for those who don't know, West Point is extremely hilly. There's housing for faculty that's up a massive hill, and around it there's even more hills. So if you want to run, you got to kind of either accept the hills or drive somewhere that is a little bit flatter.
Hmm.
So this has been a really awesome conversation. Before we wrap this up, where can people connect with you?
So I am on Instagram at Run Strong Mama. I've had that account for actually like 9 years now. I started
Wow.
posting like 9 years ago when my oldest was a baby. Um, yeah, honestly, it was like kind of the like going through new motherhood and like rediscovering my identity and trying to remember like what I was like as a competitive person. And it's changed what's been on the account. In the beginning, it was a lot of like motherhood and
Mm.
like baby stuff. And then there was a little while where I was posting all sorts of like coaching tips and reels. And now I'm not making a lot of content just because life is busy, but I do
Yeah.
post updates on there from time to time. And that's where I have most of the links for Lift Run Perform and stuff like that. So that's the best place to find me.
Awesome. Well, Erin, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you again for coming on the Retired Athlete Mentality podcast, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Jamal.